fans, we hope you're having a good start to the week. It was a weekend of fives, high fives, and we are 4 subscribers away from 500. Will it be you? Hit that subscribe button and help us achieve our first milestone before that West Brom game. Also hit the notification bell to be notified when new content is out, and give us a like as well. We're going to go into the AFC Bournemouth Weekly Top 10. Take a look back at the latest news coming out of the club in the last 7 days and what's coming up. And who have I got on this video? Aaron, how you doing, Aaron?
I'm very good, Kirk. How you doing?
It's the week commencement of the Championship, and we're going to have a look at this AFC Bournemouth Weekly. Let's get on with the top 10. The fans returned in their force, and so did Chelsea, because they were apparently the last team to visit before COVID hit. It was a youthful side again and a 2-1 loss, but lots of positives in there. Maybe the young legs ran out of steam in the end, but it was a pre-season friendly and lots of food for thought for Scott Parker.
Yeah, really good performance, especially the first sort of 60, 70 minutes when, as you say, before kind of all the substitutions happen, which always happens in friendlies, kind of the last 20 minutes give players a run out. Chelsea obviously rested some players, but started very strong. A front four of Ziyech and Pulisic and Abraham and Hudson-Odoi, is still a really potent front four. And I thought our defence handled it very well. Again, Ibsen Rossi impressed at the half of defence with Lloyd Kelly. Gavin Kilkenny again impressed me. Talking about the youth again, he won endless free kicks and pivoted that low centre of gravity. It was excellent again in that centre of midfield in that pivot role. Jadon Anthony was obviously injured for that game, so young Taylor came in and did a reasonably good job on the left. But David Brooks again looked sharp, and just again looking at the combinations and Billing and Marcondes sort of getting a relationship going together. I thought we did reasonably well. As I said, certainly for that sort of 60 minutes, we took the lead, and obviously in the end, Chelsea were able to bring on some great players like Barkley and people like him, and who were obviously first team players and scored their 2 goals. But we don't read too much into the result really at that stage.
But it was a debut goal from Marcondes. Maybe some of the goals were poor, but it is pre-season and it is a learning curve for some of these young players. Consistently inconsistent was hang time Rico. He left the club, he went to Sociedad. I think we had a bit of a loss on that. 80 plus appearances, 1 goal, great goal at Barnsley, but probably the best move for player in club in the end.
Yeah, a great character. He always gave 100%. He really seemed to take to the club and really could have bought into everything there. Obviously, never easy when you come from abroad. Never really sure that he, in truth, settled into English football. But having said that, as you said, he made multiple appearances, predominantly in the Premier League, and obviously quite a few last season. Never really consistently held the spot, whether it be left back, which is obviously he was primarily brought into. Or left centre back of a 3, or even sometimes left-sided centre back. He always did a job. His delivery for me was not always as good as it should have been. His promise, and sometimes he found himself out of position. So yeah, sad to see him go, but I would say probably, as you say, right for all parties. He was not going to be a regular, and I think that was realised probably on quite high wages as well. So, as I said, sad to see him go, but I think not devastated to see Diego go, but wishing him all the best for his future, and I really, really hope he does well back in Spain.
And as one out, one comes in, and that's Leif Davis from Leeds United, a left back. We don't know an awful lot about it, and most of his appearances have come for the under-23s, and he's played in a few EFL Cup games and FA Cup. But when he spoke with Zoe Rundle on the club website, he did talk about being a proactive left back, likes to get forward, whip balls in, and he looks like he might have a bit of energy about him. I'm excited to see what Leif Davis can bring to this AFC Bournemouth team.
Yeah, so it was one that was kind of off and on, and then on again and off again, and obviously came on again. I think, obviously we just mentioned about Diego leaving. We then clearly did need a left back option. I think it seems to me that Lloyd Kelly is going to be centre back as his primary position this season. So obviously we have young Jordan Zamora who's impressed no end. But I think we needed to obviously bring someone in, and Leif Davis was clearly the first choice to come in on loan for the season, with I think a view to a permanent move. I've sort of tapped into a couple of my Leeds friends, and they say he's very highly rated there. Obviously, say he hasn't played a huge amount of first team games, but he's got a great left foot, which is obviously important for that balance on my left hand side. Gets forward very well, reads the game very well. Can actually play centre back as well, although he's not the tallest, so he can read the game well. And I imagine that he will be the first choice left back, or certainly pushing for that. And that's, as you said, it's an exciting signing to come in.
Now, I don't know about you, Aaron, but I have AFC Bournemouth's Twitter set on notifications, and I was in bed, just settling down to go sleep, and my phone pinged up on the bedside table, and AFC Bournemouth had news at 11:55 p.m. Apparently not. They confirmed in the morning that the Twitter account was potentially hacked. Bit of strange circumstances, and a bit of a damp squid in the end.
Yeah, it was very late. My first initial feeling was, God, perhaps late to sort of either announce news or tease us for the following day. Obviously, the WhatsApp groups then started going a bit berserk. Everyone got a bit excited, and kind of thought we might wake up to some big news in the morning. But as you say, it wasn't to be. The explanation of it was a hack. Still a bit strange that on the official Twitter explanation that it was a hack, but they still had the picture that sort of came out, which is bit odd given the circumstances, but clearly there was no news. Whether it was just something that was ready to go when we do have some news and it was just put out by accident, I don't know whether it was really hacked or not. But as you say, a damp squib, and nothing came from that, so nothing to see there.
The squad numbers were released and a few changes in there. So Lewis Cook took up number 4. He said it's a number that he's always enjoyed, and he even wanted it when Gosling was at the team. And number 1 wasn't taken, Aaron. Travers has taken a number further down the list. I think we need another goalkeeper and Travers to be number 2 or go out on loan and get experience. But interestingly, that number 1 position is available, and certain media outlets are saying that we are still in for a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think, you can never read too much into everything, but I think it potentially does speak volumes that we are looking to bring in. I think it's no surprise, it was no secret that we're looking to bring in another goalkeeper. I think, whilst we do rate Mark Travers, I do feel that perhaps there are obviously a better option out there, and it's a key position, as we found out last season with Asmir's form. Peacock Farrell's gone to Sheffield Wednesday, I believe, but I still, from what I can see, that Woodman is still the number 1 target. I think the Newcastle goalkeeper situation is potentially easing for them now with Dubravka and Darlow, I think, back in, or very soon, both back and available, which might mean it's freed up. So it might not be by the start of the season, but I'd like to think by the end of the window, potentially, if that is our number 1 target, that Woodman can then come in and take the number 1. Number 2 is still available. Don't know if Jack Stacey thought about it or was given the option for it, but no, he obviously kept his number. And as you say, Lewis Cook took number 4. Bit surprised he had to actually ask Dan Gosling's permission for that. I don't know how true that was or not. That's very nice of Dan Gosling to let him have it. But it does make sense for Lewis, obviously, to take that kind of deep line midfielder number 4 role. A couple of others that stood out to me was Jeff Lerma keeping number 8 and Arnie Danjuma keeping number 10. Wishful thinking, I'm sure. But, I remember last season when Josh King took number 27, even though he didn't go straight to him, he thought, well, that's a clear sign that he's obviously off, because he took number 27, although he hung around for a bit. As I said, it's difficult. I don't think we can read too much into that. Much has been said about Arnie's, certainly Arnie, as opposed to Jeff, but will be going, and potentially if he was to go, then someone will come in at number 10. But I'd love to think that means they're staying, but I wouldn't get too excited about that.
You can find out on Dorset Live, Cherries Live. Jacob Tanswell's doing some really good stuff for Bournemouth at the moment, doing reporting. He's got lots of really good pieces that you can read. And he talked about the club struggling, having fears that maybe that training ground won't get built, and that Maxim is open to selling. We probably don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but it's not something we probably don't know already. My fear is that training ground, that we somehow, I'm not finances is not my strong point, but we need to somehow find a way of getting that training ground built, because we are falling away and losing out to a team that's 30 minutes down the road. And unless we build that and have better players coming through, or we continue to nurture the youngsters coming through, that's going to give us better sustainability in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Max has been unbelievable for us, and that interview with Jeff Mostyn before the season, said that he's obviously still committed, and I don't actually doubt that. I think with the status quo, though, much as obviously Max has financed the club, I don't think we're in a position where we can carry on at the moment with that training ground. So whether it's a case of he's looking again for more external investment to join him, as he did with the Americans a few years ago, who might have some more muscle and actually want to finance that training ground, which I think is certainly the priority over the stadium by far, then that might be what it's doing. I'm not sure he's actively looking to sell the club, although obviously if we get big offers then and someone who can take the club forward, then I'm sure he's certainly listened to it, but I don't think that's the priority for him. But maybe it's just sounding out other potential investors. As I said, we're still quite an attractive proposition if people were to come in with really big money and build that training ground and perhaps take us back to the Premier League, which are obviously what Max wants to do, but maybe he needs some help doing that.
Arnie Danjuma, we just spoke about him, the dilemma that's coming up against West Brom on Friday. Now, Aaron, I think you probably know my opinion. He's got a wage, he's got a contract. We know that there's offers coming in, some not respectable. And for me, he's got a job to do. He's got a 3-year contract, my season tickets and any tickets being purchased and any merchant and shirts being purchased are going towards paying for that wage. I want him on that football pitch. Now, the counter argument is, Aaron, that people are saying, well, we're protecting our assets, but you could sign a player for 10 million and he'll get cropped and get a 9-month ACL. I mean, at the end of the day, you run the risk whether he's at your club or you buy a new player. For me, I want him on the pitch. Every minute he's an AFC Bournemouth player, I want him there. What does Scott Parker do on Friday if he's still an AFC Bournemouth player?
Yeah, so it's a very difficult one. Obviously, whether he has had an injury where he's coming back, we have seen pictures of him in training, whether that's just coming back and onto the grass. He hasn't played in any of the pre-season friendlies, so he hasn't not used to the shape, he's not used to the intensity. So whether he's going to play any part on Friday, I very much doubt. But as you say, I mean, the dilemma is he's on a 3-year contract. I would imagine he does want to go. I think the club are probably resigned to selling him. But if we do not get a bid that matches what we feel he's worth, it's a difficult situation. It is difficult. It's different to the Josh King situation, who had a year left on his contract, could literally run that down and have a bit of a sulk. But Arnie can't really sulk for 3 years. We know that. So it's, again, it's one of the ones I'd love him to sort of buy into what Scott Parker's doing, decide he wants to give it another stab and rips up the championship like he did last season. I can't see it. So I think he will go, but before the end of a transfer window. But as you say, what happens before then is a really tricky one. You're right. We can't suddenly just wrap him up in cotton wool. But at the same time, if we're going to get £20 million for him, then the club might actually want to wrap him up in cotton wool and make sure that's the way you want to go. And as you've seen, if your heart's not in it and you really want to go, then I think Scott Parker's made it quite clear he doesn't want those sort of players around. So in an ideal world, of course, we'd all love him to stay and play. But it's a tricky one with him. And the thing is, as with some of the other players, we've got a squad of players at the moment, many of whom are unavailable for various reasons. And it's a funny sort of way to go into the start of the season.
Now, keep in mind that we've just seen this 5 minutes before going on air, and Sam Surridge is on his way, apparently, to Stoke City for £5.5 million. This is really raw feeling, so just keep that in mind. I've not had a chance to see the AFC Bournemouth Twitter feed yet. I'm actually quite frustrated about this because I don't think it's solving the problem. Now, if it's to bring in another striker, fair enough, but I think we were light with Surridge, with Solanke, and Sadie's come in, but we can't rely on Sadie at the weekend. If it's to replace or to bring in another striker to sell Sam Surridge, I don't think we've solved the problem. Now, that could be Clark Harris, it could be someone else, fair enough. We are still going to be light on goals, Aaron, in my opinion. We've just talked about potentially Danjuma going out, that's 17. I don't think Dom's going to get 20. I'll stand by that again, although he'll offer a lot. I'm actually really frustrated about this, and £5.5 million might be a lot of money, but 100 million is also a lot of money if you get promoted.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, we've just kind of seen this, and it's come out of the blue, really. Although Sam did have a knock on Saturday, so that explains that.
Of course he did.
Yeah. I'm in two minds about it. I think the way that Scott Parker wants to set up is clearly with one central striker for a start, similar to how Jason Tindall set up, Jonathan Woodgate set up, with kind of the three up front with sort of the two wingers with a central striker. So Dom clearly is that central striker as it stands at the moment. So Sam Surridge's game time, and even last season under different managers, was severely limited. And I can understand his willingness to potentially, having given it a couple of seasons and not really played much in pre-season, to go to Stoke if they are, guaranteeing him first team football. Now, £5.5 million is a lot of money for him. With the millions and millions banded around these days, your initial thought might be it's not that much, but actually, if you take a step back and you think for a player who really hasn't really cut it in the top two divisions consistently, or really proved himself, £5.5 million is a lot of money if that's indeed what we're getting for him up front. But as you say, it leaves us very light. Dom would be the only real sort of first team striker. So I can only imagine, in the same way that when Rico went, Leif Davis came in, I can only imagine that this has paved the way for another striker to come in. If it doesn't, then I would be very, very concerned. But I think, the next day or two will answer that one. So if we were to bring someone in, sort of for 10 to 12 million, which a couple of days ago might have been unaffordable for us because we just haven't got that sort of money available, if over half of it's going to come from selling Sam Surridge, and we can guarantee a first team striker to really push Dom or play alongside him or even be better than him, then I won't feel so bad about it. He's obviously, he's one of our own. He's a homegrown player. I never really thought he got potentially the chances he was given. He never really got the chance that he potentially deserved. He's a box striker who can score goals, but it's a difficult one. So I think for me, it is another one who I'm sad to see leave through the door. But the next couple of days will kind of gauge how I feel, because if no one comes in to replace him, and we start the season with Dom, and whether Dom gets injured or not, then we're still very, very light up front, and that is a real problem.
Back to the positives then, and that was the weekend. More fans got back into the stadium, and MK Dons came down to the south, and they had a pretty good start with Travis saving down low, but then the quality we have in our team shone through. 5 goals, 2 from Brooks, both right foot. Billing, when he scores, we win. Doms trying to have a say about whether he can get to 20 goals this season. Remember, only in the Championship. And Christian Sadie got a debut goal as well. Lots of positive, lots of smiles on Twitter. Love it.
Yeah, as I said, it was a great last competitive friendly, shall we say. I think it was a great shout in the end to bring that game forward. Obviously, it was a competitive game, but again, gave some more competitive minutes ahead of the real business start of the season we're going to come on to. Again, some really good performances. It was the same team that played against Chelsea, bar Anthony coming back in for Taylor. So obviously there's a bit of continuity there now. We obviously, as I've mentioned before, some players aren't available. So this potentially is 11 that we're going to be going with against West Brom. But yeah, again, instrumental. Gavin Kilkenny was man of the match against MK Dons. He's proving, that the playmaker, the ball for Brooks's first goal was just exquisite. He can switch to play. He gets him on the ball, and he's been a revelation. Again, Ibsen Rossi again, it's difficult to potentially judge him against the MK Dons attack. But as we mentioned earlier, he did well against the Chelsea attack, and him and Lloyd Kelly look to be really kind of solidifying that defensive relationship they got together. Jack Stacey, again, and Adam Smith started as the fullbacks. Jack Stacey came off injured, which is a bit of a worry. I think he's having a scan to find how much that was. But then Jordan Zamora came on and again does what we know he can do. Did a really, really good job at left back, flying forward. And Billing and Marcondes in that kind of 2 pivot ahead of Kilkenny, again, doing what they do best. And I think that's the positions that are going to get the best out of them this season. I think they're both pivotal and instrumental for what we're going to do. Getting goals. As I said, Marcondes got one against Chelsea, Billing gets one against MK Dons. And David Brooks again looks really sharp. Yes, he missed a couple of really good chances, but obviously he scored 2 goals with his weaker foot. Again, looks to be really buying into what Scott Parker wants him to do, staying wide. We've seen that's kind of one of the tactics, and getting him to take players on one-on-one. But he looks really, really sharp. Hopefully not too sharp, so he doesn't get in the window before the window closes. Because I think he's going to be a pivotal player for us this season, especially if Arnie goes, as you say. I think Brooks last season was poor by his own accounts. But if he can be the player that really takes it on this season, then he can do that job. And Dom getting a goal. So, and as you say, and youngsters again, Sadie coming on, scoring his goal, impressing all over the pitch. It was a really, really good feel-good factor around the place. Yes, MK Dons didn't help themselves with some ridiculous passing out, and the goalkeeper, really didn't help himself again, doing it on countless times, but which clearly helped. But the high press kind of pushed them into that, and I think that's what we want to do: that high press, that high intensity, and we put a relatively decent League One side to the sword.
And at number one is the real test, the first championship game of the season at the Vitality Stadium on Friday, AFC Bournemouth versus West Brom. We just spoke about that Carabao Cup game, Aaron, and there was loads of people going that the kids are leading the way, they can do it. You know what's going to happen though? If we don't get a result against West Brom, they'll say they're out of their depth.
Yeah, I mean, this is the acid test, isn't it? It's a very, very tough start. West Brom are the favourites for promotion. Obviously we got them at home. Personally, I'm quite nervous about it, as you would be, excited at the same time. I would take a draw, because you just don't lose your first game, certainly against one of the favourites for promotion. And I think we got a good run after that. It's going to be very, very tough. Couple of interesting calls. I think Meps is back after a suspension, but whether he's going to disrupt the Rossi Kelly partnership, I don't think he will. Although it's good to obviously have Chris Mepham available again as another centre back option, because we're light in that department at the moment with CCV obviously gone and Steve Cook injured. Again, if Jack Stacey doesn't make it, obviously Adam Smith comes in on the right, which is very, very easy. But whether Leif Davis is available after his slight knock, or whether Zamora has to start, that's going to be a slight concern. I think the rest of the team picks itself at the moment. So it's going to be a very tough test. I know Pereira is unavailable for them. Similar to our situation, I think he clearly wants to leave the club, and the manager's actually come out and not minced his words and said he's not available. He doesn't want to play in this division. He doesn't want to play for the club, so he's not available. And the goalkeeper Johnson is also out. So I think it looks like Button is going to be in goal, which is obviously for those two being out is a boost for us. But as I said, they're not favourites for no reason. They're very strong. They got an excellent manager, as we know from last season when he did really well with Barnsley. It's going to be a very difficult test, but I think we're full of confidence. I think there's a bit of no fear shown from the youth. And if the likes of David Brooks and Dom Solanke can turn up and fill billing, one of the more senior players, then we certainly can get a result. Of course we can, against any team in this division. But I think it's as I said, it's going to be a very interesting kind of first few weeks, because we kind of want to get to the end of the window to know who's in our squad, who's there, who's leaving, who's staying, and that's kind of when the season starts in earnest. At the moment, we're kind of in this really funny situation where so many of our first team players are either injured or unavailable, or think they're going and they're not going, they're not playing, so players I'm sure will be coming in over the next few weeks, but not in time for West Brom, I'm sure. So we'll go with what we've got and hopefully get off to a really positive start.
And that was your top 10 AFC Bournemouth Weekly. Let us know your thoughts on that top 10. And are you excited about the West Brom game? Are you nervous now with only potentially one main striker to be picked from? Aaron, it's really good to see you again. And are you going to the game on Friday?
I can't make it, unfortunately. I can't do Friday night. So my wait goes on after 18 months. I will hopefully be at Nottingham Forest for my first game. But obviously I will be watching the game on Friday night.
But thanks for joining me on this AFC Bournemouth Weekly.
Always a pleasure. And yes, let's hope we get off to a good start.
And let's get to 500 before that West Brom game. We really do appreciate your support. If you like what we do on this channel and you're looking forward to the season ahead, you can sponsor us or become a member. buymeacoffee.com/cherriesredarmy. Any small donations go towards supporting this channel, paying for the StreamYard that we use to deliver these videos and live streams. We'll welcome any donations. It really will help, and we'll keep bringing the content for you. The details will be in the description as well. But that is your AFC Bournemouth Weekly. We've got more videos potentially coming your way before West Brom and during and after West Brom as well. But have a good week, and we'll see you on the next video. Up the Cherries.